I was born in Chicago, Illinois. My mother passed after she gave birth to my sister. And after I was left up there with my grandmother's sister, and we come up to Chicago to get us out of Chicago and brought us down here in Alabama to be raised by my grandparents. So I understand that she had 11 children. Her husband died at the age of 43. And she left her with 11 children, 5 girls, 6 boys. With me and my sister joining the family, that made her have 13 children to try to raise. Well, my sister caught the pneumonia during the transfer from Chicago to Alabama. My grandmother wasn't able to save her. She died very young. My mother had already passed in Chicago. I understood that she died from exposure. It was very hard to live in Chicago during those days. Way I understand, because I was too young, I didn't know what life was all about. The way I understand that she died from exposure. During those days, it got real cold. My father, I never knew nothing about him. I understand that my mother, they said during them days, girl get pregnant, they broke the leg. Well, after her leg got broken, they sent her to Chicago. And that's where I was born at. Undoubtedly, my father was living here in the South, because if she got pregnant in the South and sent to Chicago on the count of she broke her leg, my father had to be here in Alabama. But I only go by what I heard them say. I don't know. That was my prediction. Well, I was raised mostly in Alabama, raised by my grandparents and my aunt. My aunt Liberia. I thought she was my mother. She took so good care of me when she was living. She died in 1933. We were living on Wesley and Maple Street. Now it's Early Street. It's Early and Maple. The house is still there. So we moved from there to Bragg Street. I was old enough to get drafted in the Navy. I became 18 years of age in 1943. And that Uncle Sam said he wanted me, so I had to go with Uncle Sam. If I didn't go with Uncle Sam, I went to jail. They got the most of the young men and young boys that become of age to go to the military. They got all of them, mostly. The one that wasn't in school, or I wasn't even in school. I was trying to work to help support my family, my grandmother. They got me a job down in Southeastern Drug Company. They were from Germany, German Jews. They were running the Southeastern Drug Company during that time. And she hired me, paying me $12.25 a week. And $12.25 a week during that time, that was pretty good money. I got that job and gave my grandmother the money, and she gave me $2 out of it for myself, and she kept the 10. $2 and a quarter was mine, and she kept the 10 to help run the house. You could get a loaf of bread for a nickel during that time. A nickel loaf, you can get a dime loaf of bread. You can get a can of sardines for a nickel. So I ended up going to the military and joined the Navy. They put me in the Navy on August 11th, 1943. They sent me to Great Lakes, Illinois. Great Lakes was a Navy base where they trained young people about the Navy. Wasn't too many black people in the Navy during that time. They was in the Navy, but they were no seamen. Most of the black people that was in the Navy was cooks and bakers, and they got their rating as cooks and bakers. They had a big C on their sleeve that let them know that it was a cook. And their job was to cook and bake and keep them white officers' shoes shine. But after Joe Lewis was popular during that time, Joe Lewis was big world champion boxer. He gave a fight. He gave the contents of his fight to the Navy. And then they started letting the Navy guys get rated as seamen. When we went from Frisco to on our way to Guam. I mean not Guam. We finally got to Guadalcanal. We had to sit out there in the ocean, in the bay for about 15 or 20 days. And we ran out of water, ran out of fresh water. We didn't have no fresh water to take a shower in. We had to take a shower in salt water, in soap. So we sit out there in the ocean for about 15 or 20 days until they secured the island enough for us to go in and set up camp. Because we was connected to the NSD supply depot. That's what the NSD was. They never did issue us any weapons. We didn't have no weapons. We was mostly a work battalion. I never want to go back. I don't care what kind of condition it is now. I wouldn't want to go back because it don't do nothing but remind me of the memories that I went through when we was there. You couldn't human body parts, you could see them sticking up out the ground. And we stayed in Guam until they dropped the atomic bomb in 1945. And that was discharged in 1945, and December the 23rd, 1945. We was discharged. And I came home. We came home, and I've been home where I could take care of my grandmother. Try to get a job back. They're supposed to give us a job back and give us credit for being seniority, for being in the military. And I was working on the railroad in the bridge gang down there where the Biscuit Stadium is now in Montgomery. Here. Down there on the Coosa and Tallapoosa Street. That's where the Western Railroad warehouse was. And all over where the Biscuit baseball field is, they had train tracks out there. So I finally got married. I married a girl that I went to school with. involved with another guy, but I took her from him. I took her from him because he wasn't treating her right. He kicked her on the leg. And she wore that scar about 2 or 3 years before it could heal. And it didn't heal until after we was married. I married in 1947. 1947. And I went to live with them in that little 2-room in the kitchen house. And we stayed together in that, my mother-in-law and my children and me was raised, she helped finish raising me after I got out of the military. I used to see Dr. King all the time because I was working at Lipster Dry Cleaner on Perry Street. And I would leave work and go downtown and to the pool hall, because I learned to play pool a little bit in the Navy, and I liked to play pool during that time. And I go by there, and Dr. King was trying to solicit people to join his group, you know. And he and Reverend Abernathy was together, and about 4 other people would be with him during that time. And he'd come in the pool room and try to talk to people and try to get them to understand what the movement was all about during that time. And he was a real dedicated man. It was something else for him to die. So I worked at the glass plant 38 years.
So now who's the oldest child here?
He's not here.
He is not here.
Next. Now when were you born?
March 12th, 1950.
1950. So do you recall anything with the Montgomery bus boycott or the march from Selma to Montgomery?
Well, the march from Selma to Montgomery ended at St. Jude. And we were students at St. Jude. We were small.
Who all were students at St. Jude?
We all were at St. Jude. We all Catholic. We all went to St. Jude. So that was 1965, Selma to Montgomery March. So I was 15 years old.
How old was everyone else?
14 years less than her.
Okay.
I was still a twinkle in his eye.
So, were you on campus then?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what were they saying? What were the teachers saying, and what were your parents saying about the march?
From what I remember, I was looking at the window. I think I was about in 8th grade, and we ran from one side of the building at St. Jude, looking out the window to the other side. And I could just hear the teachers saying, they're coming, because they could see them out the window coming down Fairview. And the students started to run to the window. And when they got to the campus, we were just so excited to see so many people, because a lot of people joined along the way. They may have not walked from Selma all the way to Montgomery, but along the way they joined in, and the crowd was just humongous. It was really a large crowd of people, and like she said, they did dismiss us to leave early. And I can just remember my parents gathering up food, loaves of bread, bologna, for the sandwiches, mayo, anything that we had at the house to bring up there to St. Jude in the cafeteria to have fixed food for these people.
The marchers coming to St. Jude has been implanted in my mind, and when it came again for the 5th anniversary, they didn't stay on the campus. They stayed across the street. Red Calhoun played, but St. Jude owned that lot of it. They still own it, and that's the part that I remember, and it kind of sad that they didn't really still continue to live up to that legacy of letting those people stay on the campus, you know.
Do you remember some of the sounds that from the campus? Do you remember, what do you remember most? I know you said you remember seeing the crowds and right into the windows. Any familiar sounds?
They were
Singing.
singing coming from the south.
We sure come.
They were singing, and you could hear it way away. You could hear them coming. You know, they were coming. But we were at home then, because we lived Relf. We could see St. Jude from AJ. So anyway, we were running up. She said we could go so far, but you know, don't go over. But then they had a concert that night when they got there. Gary Belafonte,
Sammy Davis Jr.
Sammy Davis Jr.,
Have
Ella.
Peter and Paul.
There's a lot of, but you know,
Other stars.
a lot of stars. They built a stage and all that. And Martin Luther King was there, you know, there then. And got into singing, you know, we're peeping over and jumping, you know, but we couldn't. And the next day, you know, they did all night. I did most of the night. They had the concert, and people were invited in to sing and make it a big festivity because we were going to the Capitol. We could only bounce so far in the area. We couldn't go all the way downtown. You know, when we were little, but we came back and we stand at the houses in the back of the schools, houses on Stevenson Street. We stand there on their ground and watch them go and sing and go, you know, the route. They still got the same route. So just the noise and the excitement and all that, and arm in arm, hand in hand, you know, and it was nice, but you know, like John said, it was sad that in the end they couldn't use the grounds anymore, and the city of St. Jude did suffer from accepting those marches. We had them in the school, in the cafeteria, in the church, on the pews, you know, sleeping and stuff, you know. But and we had a hospital, so you know, people started, doctors and things started putting out the hospital and everything where some of us were born. And they just didn't want to be affiliated with the movement. So I remember that, and you know, everything has a cost, so you know, we never revived ourselves after that.
Mr. Elijah,
Yes.
what were some of your hopes of the march, results for the march?
Well, I was hoping that that nobody never did anything to Martin Luther, but it happened when he went to Tennessee. So I was hoping to make things better. It was some pretty rough times during that time. Black people was having a hard time. You take when Rosa Parks, I used to catch a bus in Rosa Parks, catch the bus up at over there on Montgomery Street after she was arrested for sitting in the white folks' seat on the bus. A lot of times the white people wouldn't be on the white people in this white people's seat. The seat was just empty, but the bus driver said you can't sit there. Cause I remember when I was working for the dry cleaning, I had some bags on my shoulder, the clothes that I had cleaned. We caught the bus at Harcum Street in Jeff Davis. That's why I used to walk around there and catch the bus, because the dry cleaning plant was on Court Street. I could come all the way through and walk around and catch the bus to the park. It to Washington Park. And Miss Park would be on the bus already, and she would get off at Cleveland Avenue in Jeff Davis, because she lived in Cleveland Court. And but it's just that when she was arrested for not getting up, letting the white man sit down, that took a toll on the public transportation, because they boycotted the buses in the state. We boycotted the buses for over a year, I believe it was. And I joined the carpool. The carpool was to pick up people and help them to get where they had to go. A lot of our people were working for white people, and they had to, try to get to work. And a lot of our people got fired on account of they couldn't get to work. And they had no way to get to work. But I picked up a lot of people for nothing. It didn't cost me too much, because gas during that time was 26 cents a gallon. And I picked up a whole lot of people and carried them to work with no charge. And the police was pretty bad during that time to black people. I seen the police over there on Michael Street. People be walking, come toward the park where they usually catch the bus at in order to catch a ride. And the police run them off into the ditches. They had to jump off the street into a ditch in order to keep the police from running over. They speed up the car, raise the motor in order to make them jump out of the street and into the ditch. The police was really rough during that time. During that time I was in taxi. Remember when I was in taxi business? And my aunt worked at Cresses. She cooked at Cresses. And she called me and told me she'll be waiting on me on the side door of Greens, H.L. Greens, on the Perry Street side. And I went down there to pick her up, and the police wouldn't let me stop there. He didn't want me to stop there to pick her up, and there was a loading zone right there in front of the door of H.L. Green. And that was a loading zone. And all the other taxis, they let them in there. Lane was one of the taxi companies that was owned by a white man. And one of the lieutenants of the police department was there directing the traffic, not letting other taxis in there to pick up people. And my aunt was standing over there by the wall, and she had called me and told me she was gonna be there, and I did like this. I parked my car in the loading zone, did like this here, and got out and walked on over there and got her package and opened my trunk and put them in the trunk of the car. And the police see me did that, He had unbuckled his scabbard, getting ready to pull out his gun. And when I did that, he put his gun back in his scabbard. Well, see, God was with me. God was with me. God been with me all my life. Because getting back to where I was working for this Southeastern Drug Company, Miss Berlin and Mr. Berlin sent me to the Greyhound bus station with a case of Bob's Cola to send to Enterprise on my bicycle. And I delivered we were going to send it by express on the bus, on the Greyhound bus. And I carried the case of barcode in there and put it on the scale. And that weighed 45 pounds. In that click, I told him he was talking to a bus driver, one of the bus drivers there at the Greyhound bus station. Because I knew he was a bus driver because he had on a gray uniform. And he was talking to this bus driver. And I said, kids weigh 45 pounds. I told him that while he was talking to this bus driver. And when he got through talking to the bus driver, he said, you said that kids weigh 45 pounds? I said, yeah, just like that. And the bus driver drove back and hit me, hit at me like that, and I threw my hand up just like that. And it hit me right along in here. That's what the bus driver did. And it hurt me so bad until I started crying. I was about 15 years old during that time. And I hit my pocket. I knew I had the knife. I knew I had my knife, but I didn't have it. But God let me left my knife at home that day because he knew that I was going to run into some problem. And if I'd have had my knife, my name would probably been down there in the museum because I know they would have killed me. Because I'm going to eat him up with that knife. So during that time, wearing them zoot suits during that time. Cab Calloway.
Yeah.
That means I got that zoot suit called Cab Calloway come out with them zoot suit. And I hit my pocket in the switchblade knife with the punch button. I had one, but I had left it at home. And I said, God was with me to leave that knife at home that day because he knew I was going to run into some problems. He said, God been with me all my life. Because I was shot at on Guadalcanal, and the bullet landed up over my head about a foot. It landed in a case of pineapple. Sure did. We were working on the dry dock. And the bullet landed in a hole shot in a case of pineapple because me and Sandy Miller was working on the dry dock and two other guys. And I happened to go down to pick up something, and the bullet came over to my head right there, over there from Bougainville. Because Bougainville was about a quarter of a mile from the dry dock where we were working. God was with me then. He took care of me. Been taking care of me all my life. He's still taking care of me.
Yes, you were here.
Yeah, I'm still here.
We get to hear your story.
Then reached 100 and started counting all over again. I done started counting all over again now.
Two more questions, because I haven't heard from the children in the back. What does St. Jude mean to you?
Family. St. Jude's family, no matter what grades we were in, we were all family. We're still family right now. We run into students that are older than I. They treat me like I'm their little sister, or I'm Michael Relf's little sister. You know, their mom was our mom because they looked out for us like that. You know, where's this person? And they kept up with us, and they brought us snacks when they brought their children snacks. So we grew up in the church and St. Jude's School and the hospital, and that's where I was born. So St. Jude is just pretty much everything to us. We all went to St. Jude for 12 years.
Well, pretty much the same thing, but to me, it's the legacy of the school itself. How far back it goes, the significance of everything that took place there. You know, the spirit is still there. I like the idea that they are trying to keep alive these Selma Montgomery March with the This Side of the Bridge activity that they had this past year. I saw that being a great thing, but I still think it should have been on the campus. because that's where it all originated from. Now, I'm not sure about the particulars as to why it didn't happen there, but I just feel like the legacy of the school and everything that it meant to so many people, including during the time of the Civil Rights March, I think that needs to be preserved. I think people need to know that this is the place that this happened. This is how it happened. This is why it happened. And we, the children, we are actually the recipients of everything that happened there, everything that happened with the Civil Rights March. To see things, take a different turn as far as this city is concerned, it's a great thing, but I don't think, the legacy of the school needs to be lost in all of that. Because I've seen several times and heard different people say, well, I went to this school way back in the day, but now the school doesn't even exist anymore. But the spirit of the school is still alive right now. And I wish we can do something to revitalize that.
Well, you can never take away the memories of St. Jude and the people that went through St. Jude. The legacy, the memories, it's always going to be instilled in our minds. So you can take away something physical, but you can't take away spiritual.